It happened a few weeks ago during my night shift at the radio station. I was new, just 26 and fresh out of college. I took the job to help pay off my student loans. The station was in an old warehouse on the edge of town. It felt cold inside, and the dim lights cast long shadows that made the place feel creepy. I sat in the control room, surrounded by old equipment. The first nights were quiet, but then I noticed something strange. On my second night, I heard static. I thought it was just the radio acting up. But then, I heard whispers mixed with the static. I shook it off, thinking it was just old tech. My skin prickled, but I pushed through it. The next few nights, things got worse. The static grew louder and was sometimes mixed with laughter. I kept hearing soft knocking on the walls. My heart raced each time. I had to convince myself it was my imagination. Then there was Jenna, the new intern. She would watch me quietly and seemed to disappear for long stretches. Whenever I asked about it, she'd smile and change the subject. It felt off point one night. I decided to stay late and dig through the old tapes. The static had become constant, and the air felt charged with something. Suddenly, I heard a voice, deep and echoing. "Turn it on," it said, clear as day. I froze. The studio was empty, and I tried to breathe. There was no one else here, but it felt like the voice was talking directly to me. Nights passed, and the odd things kept happening. I heard noises in soundproof rooms that made me feel as if I was losing my mind. I was convinced someone was always watching. One night, I thought I saw Jenna standing at the end of the hall, just staring. I called her name, but she didn't respond. When I got to where she had been, she was gone. A tight knot formed in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feelings I had. I turned the dial on the mixer, desperation creeping in. The static faded and laughter erupted over the airwaves like a burst of energy. I felt cold fear wash over me. Just then, Jenna appeared beside me. "What are you doing?" she whispered wide-eyed. Her gaze wasn't right. As I turned to answer, I realized with horror that she wasn't there anymore. Panic gripped me as I was left alone again in the dark. But the laughter still echoed through the station. I stood frozen, unable to move. I could hear the whispers again, calling to me. They weren't just static, they were beckoning me. I should have stayed silent. I should have never answered. But something made me curious, something that felt dangerous. I turned the dial again, and the whispers grew louder, urging me to join them. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I felt like I had already crossed a line I couldn't undo. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the control board, the glow of the monitors flickering weakly. My mind raced with thoughts of Jenna and the voice I'd heard. What had I stumbled into? The laughter faded, leaving behind only the echo of my own pulse. I felt like I was spiraling, trapped in this bizarre energy that coursed throughout the station. As dawn broke, light flooded through the grimy windows. I heard the front door creak open. My heart jumped. Could it be Jenna? I needed answers. I dashed out of the control room, adrenaline replacing the fear that had paralyzed me. In the lobby, I found a figure. It was an older man, disheveled and wearing a faded jacket. He was hunched over the reception desk, staring at the dusty equipment like it was a long-lost friend. "Hello?" I called hesitantly. Startled, he looked up. His gaze was intense and hollow. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped, his voice like gravel. "They don't like it when you meddle." "Who?" I asked, bewildered. "What do you mean?" "There's a force in this place, something you don't understand. It demands attention and respect. I've seen it take others," he said, shivering slightly. "If you hear the whispers, don't fall for them." I was confused. "What whispers?" He shook his head, pulling away, retreating into shadow as if the dim light hurt him. The temptation to turn it on, he muttered before stepping into the hall and disappearing. Panic surged through me again. Was I losing my mind? I went back to the control room, needing to gather my thoughts. I flipped on the console and wrestled with my instincts. Maybe I could control it if I just understood what it was. As I sat down, resignation washed over me. I felt drawn back to the tapes, the very things that had initiated this spiral. I rummaged through the labels until one caught my eye, a startling title, Voices from the Past. I hesitated, but eventually slid it into the player. The sound crackled to life immediately. Instead of the usual static, a recognizable voice boomed through the speakers. It was Jenna, laughing. Panic raced through me, and I ripped the headphones off. My hands trembled, and I couldn't process what was happening. Why was her voice here? Then, the audio shifted. A deep, commanding voice filled the space, deeper than I had heard before. Join us, the words seeped into my bones, wrapping around my thoughts. My body trembled as I fought the urge to obey, but fear tethered me in place. I couldn't let it take me to. I slammed my hand on the stop button, cutting it off, but the laughter reverberated in my mind. Just as I thought I was safe, everything went dark. The power cut out, plunging me into silence, leaving only the whispers swirling in the void that I fumbled for my phone, the light guiding me through the blackness. I stumbled toward the door, desperation pushing me along. I needed to get out, but I knew it would not let me leave easily. Something pulled at me from behind. I turned back, the empty room feeling like a prison. Then something moved in my peripheral vision. I wasn't alone. I squinted into the dimness, heart pounding loud enough to drown out the whispers. I didn't want to turn around. I had already seen too much, but something compelled me. Gritting my teeth, I twisted in place to first. I just saw shadows. They flickered like a candle's flame, dancing along the walls. My fingers gripped the edge of the control board, knuckles white. Then, a figure emerged, a woman. Her face cloaked in shadow, but her hair streaming like dark water down her shoulders. "Jenna," I whispered, hope mingling with dread. But as she stepped closer, I could see it wasn't her. There was something off. The way she moved, almost gliding, sent chills through my spine. "You should not have listened," she said, her voice low and melodic. It was so much like Jenna's, yet far from it. I felt the air grow thick around her, an overwhelming presence that made it hard to breathe that I forced myself to take a step back. "What do you want?" I managed to croak out. She tilted her head, and for a moment, I thought I saw fear flicker in her eyes, a reflection of my own. "The station can give you answers, but the cost is high. You must choose." "Choose what?" I asked, my voice trembling. I was losing control of the situation, the pull of the room tightening around me. "Join us," she whispered again, the command almost soothing, as if it were a lullaby meant to lure me to sleep. The very words felt familiar, and I wondered if they were the same ones from the tape. "You can uncover the truth, but you will become part of it." "No, I'll never be part of this." I took another step back. The darkness shifted, pressing in on me. Behind her, I noticed a glint, a small metallic object on the floor. It seemed out of place, almost like a beacon in the dark. It was a key. I didn't know where it led, but I could sense it was my way out and my way in. "Do not." The voice snapped at me, sharp and impatient. The woman lunged forward, faster than I could react. Panic shot through me, and instinct took over. I scrambled back toward the door, grabbing the key as I went. "Don't leave," she cried out, desperation lacing her tone. I felt the door press against my back as I pushed through. Just as I burst into the hallway, a freezing wave washed over me. I glanced back. The woman stood frozen, the shadow around her growing darker and denser. Then, she vanished, as if swallowed whole by the very darkness that had birthed her. That's when I heard it, a low rumbling laughter echoing down the corridor, a promise that this wasn't over. I didn't stop to think. I turned and ran, my feet pounding against the floor, desperately racing to escape whatever nightmare this was that I needed to find Jenna. I needed to understand what had happened to her. As I fled through the maze of hallways, every sound behind me felt like a threat, every shadow a reminder that I was still entangled in something beyond my comprehension. In my heart, I felt the weight of the choice looming over me. I had only begun to scratch the surface of this darkness. Who would I become if I kept digging deeper? Then, I skidded to a halt in front of the emergency exit. My breath hitched. I found myself staring at a door with no handle, a solid barrier that loomed larger than my fears. Panic rooted me to the spot as the laughter continued to swirl around me, a taunting reminder that escape was not so simple. I stood frozen in front of the door, the laughter echoing louder, teasing me like a cruel game. I felt trapped. A wave of frustration washed over me. I turned back, glancing down the corridor, hoping for an escape route. The walls felt like they were closing in, whispering secrets I couldn't grasp. Then, I remembered the key. I fished it out of my pocket, my fingers trembling as I held it up. Somehow, it felt heavy, like it held the weight of the decisions ahead. I could feel it pulling at me, urging me to move. I needed to find a place to use it somewhere. Turning on my heel, I sprinted toward the far end of the corridor, the laughter trailing behind me. I couldn't decipher if it was real laughter or merely a trick of my mind. Either way, I had to keep moving. Staying still felt dangerous. The lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that twisted and danced along the walls. Every sound made me jump. Footfalls behind me, a quiet gasp, the faint crackle of static. I didn't dare look back. I focused on the end of the hallway, where I spotted an open door. It led to a storage room, filled with dusty old equipment and boxes that I didn't care if it was a trap. I dashed inside, slamming the door shut behind me. The laughter faded to a distant murmur, but didn't disappear entirely. I felt the oppressive weight of what lay outside and inside. I took in my surroundings, heart racing. The storage room smelled of rust and decay. Shelves lined the walls, filled with tangled wires, old microphones, and audio tapes that were probably decades old. I searched through the clutter. I needed something, a clue, a map, anything. When I saw it. A large wooden box in the corner. It looked ancient, almost like something you'd find in an attic. I approached cautiously, my instincts telling me it could either help or hurt me. I knelt down, brushing off the dust. It creaked as I opened it, revealing a collection of cassette tapes. They were unmarked, but I felt an undeniable pull toward them. I picked one up, examining it carefully. The tapes deepened the mystery. Were they related to Jenna? The station? My hand quivered as I fumbled with the cassette, trying to pull it from its case. I glimpsed something red, a piece of paper wedged underneath. I pulled it out, and the air shifted as I read. Once you listen, there's no turning back. The past and future will intertwine, and everything you understand will shift. A cold shiver shot down my spine. This was what I feared, truths that could hurt me. Yet, as every moment passed, I could hear that laughter growing outside the door again, bubbling with anticipation. I had to make a choice. Should I listen? Should I run? Just then, the door rattled, and my heart raced. The laughter was louder now, infectious. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something monumental. That's when I heard a scraping sound, and my blood ran cold. Someone, or something, was trying to get in. My breath caught in my throat as the door rattled again, more forcefully this time. Panic surged through me. I clutched the cassette tightly, feeling its edges dig into my palm. I had to act. But what? If I listened to the tape, what horrors might await me? If I waited, would whatever was outside gain entry? The scraping sound continued, unnervingly rhythmic. I glanced at the box of tapes again. I knew I had to make a decision, but the urgency of the moment twisted my stomach into knots. Finally, desperation pushed me forward. I had come too far to back down. Now that I placed the cassette in the small, battery-operated player I found on a shelf nearby. My fingers trembled as I pressed play. The whir of the machine filled the air, a low hum that seemed to pulse along with the shifting laughter outside. I leaned in closer, every instinct screaming at me to stop. Then it came, the crackling sound of a voice, distorted yet familiar. If you're listening to this, you've decided to confront the past. The voice was soothing yet laced with undertones of caution. You may not return unchanged. The laughter outside ebbed, replaced by a suffocating silence. Every word wrapped around me like a cold fog. The voice continued, recounting tales of those who come before me, lost souls, seekers of truth. As I listened, a flood of memories washed over me, fragments of a night long forgotten. I remembered Jenna, her lively smile flickering like a candle in the dark. A chill slipped over me as I realized this voice somehow knew about her. As the voice spoke, I felt an involuntary pull towards the darkness creeping around me. I stifled a gasp when a shadow flickered just outside the door. It was fleeting, but it was there. Something was out there, lurking, listening right along with me. The urge to stop listening burned in my gut, but I couldn't shake the need to find out more. The voice shifted gears, delving deeper into secrets of the station, the unexplained laughter, the whispers, the people who vanished without a trace. I felt sweat beading on my brow, each confession cementing my growing dread. Trust no one, not even yourself, it warned. Once you know the truth, it can never be unlearned. You will see the world through new eyes, haunted by shadows. My heart raced. I couldn't let whatever tried to get in disrupt me. But as the final words echoed, the door slammed open with such force that dust swirled around me. The laughter poured in, incandescent and savage. I knew I had to get out. I couldn't stay there any longer. But where could I go? Suddenly, a figure emerged, silhouetted in the doorway. I couldn't make out their features, but I could feel their gaze piercing through me. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. I was caught between the past and an unknown future, the laughter amplifying around me. Before I could react, the figure stepped forward, and my world twisted again. The figure took a step closer, and I finally caught a glimpse of their face. Hollow eyes stared back at me, unblinking. A chill slid down my spine as something unnatural grinned in my direction. It didn't seem quite human. The laughter outside turned sharp, jagged, a cacophony of awful joy. "Are you ready to embrace the truth?" the figure asked. The voice was hauntingly familiar, but I couldn't place it. I stumbled back, bumping into the player, the tape still whirring behind me. I was frozen, caught in a moment that felt endless. With every second that passed, the laughter warped into a chant, pulling me in, urging me to remember. I recalled a night not long ago, filled with innocent fun and Jenna's laughter. I could almost see her standing next to me, as if she were still alive, not trapped in shadows like this thing before me. "What did you do to her?" I shouted, breaking the trance. The figure's grin widened. "Her truth is intertwined with yours now. You can join her, or you can fight. The choice is always yours." I glanced toward the doorway. The surrounding air felt thick with dread, like a warm blanket weighted with unseen torment. I had to make a choice, and I had to make it fast. My instincts told me to run, but my need for answers pulled me closer to this entity. My heart hammered in my chest. "What do you know about Jenna?" I pressed, desperate for clarity. It tilted its head, considering me as if my question was amusing. "She knows the station too well. She listened far too long. You'll hear her voice if you dare." Before I could respond, it gestured toward the pile of tapes. A strong compulsion gripped me, urging me to grab one. It was the final, unmarked tape from the box. Without thinking, my hand reached out, and the moment my fingers brushed against it, visions flooded my mind, flashes of laughter. The darkness I felt creeping in, shadows circling Jenna's figure, pulling her away from me, until she faded until there was nothing but echoes. I gasped as I stumbled back again, dropping the tape like it burned my hand, and the figure laughed, a sound so filled with malice, it made my skin crawl. "Will you face your fears? Or will you leave her behind?" It taunted, stepping closer still. A flicker of movement caught my eye, and I turned just in time to see another shadow slithering past the doorway. The laughter grew louder, almost mocking me. I had one last chance to escape the suffocating grip of this place. With a surge of adrenaline, I dashed toward the door, but the figure moved faster. It blocked my path, its presence suffocating. "You want her back? Then listen." I jerked to a halt. "Listen? Listen to what? More lies?" "Not lies. Truth." The voice echoed in my mind, reverberating like the pulse of the tape player still roaring behind me. I locked eyes with the figure, and in that moment, I saw Jenna's face flash across the shadows, pleading. "Okay," I whispered, panic threading through my voice. "I'll listen." But what I didn't know, as I accepted the choice that had tethered me to this cursed place, was that doing so would shatter everything I thought I knew. Then, something deep inside me screamed that whatever truth I would uncover wouldn't just haunt me, it might consume me. Then everything went dark. The darkness swallowed me whole. I stood still, unable to move, the figure's laughter echoing in the void. But then, a thin sliver of light cut through the black, illuminating a familiar room. The radio station. My heart raced as my mind struggled to grasp what just happened. Had I truly switched places, or was this an illusion? I immediately recognized the layout, the worn-out desk, overturned chairs, and the dusty windows letting in moonlight. But the air was thick, suffocating with an eerie silence, like the calm before a storm. I rubbed my palms against my jeans, trying to calm down. My breath felt shallow as memories flared up. "Jenna," I whispered, hoping she'd answer. Another flicker of movement caught my eye, and I turned. She was there, a shadowy outline in the corner. Panic surged. Was she real? Or another trick of the darkness? "Jenna, is that you?" Her figure shuddered, the edges blurry. "You have to listen." The voice was faint, like an echo bouncing off walls coated in dread. "Listen to what? I don't understand." Frustration boiled inside me. How could I trust anything in this place? Shadows danced around her, and I noticed something glinting on the ground near her. I stepped closer. It was a cassette. Not just any cassette, the one I dropped. Somehow, it was back in this room, like it had never left. My heart twisted. "You need to come with me," I said, reaching for the tape. "You need to." The shadows wove tighter around her, digging in like claws. Jenna's face contorted, a mix of fear and determination. "You have to break the cycle." "What cycle?" I was shouting now, grappling with the absurdity of the situation. "What do you mean?" "Each night, the same thing happens. We're trapped in a loop. You must." Her voice trailed off, swallowed by the crackle of static that filled the air. With every passing second, the shadows tightened their grip, pulling her away. "Jenna!" I lunged, but my hand passed through her as though she were made of smoke. Despair clawed at my insides. "What cycle?" Then it happened. A phonograph, an antique one at that, spun to life beside us. Dust swirled as a melody filled the room, resonating like a beacon against the gloom. I recognized the tune. It was the same one Jenna used to hum on late-night drives, the one that made the miles disappear. "Follow the music," she shouted, her voice battling against the rising tide of darkness. "It will take you where you need to go." Just then, the shadows surged. Jenna's outline faded, swallowed entirely by the chaos. Fear washed over me. I had to move. I had to follow. But as I turned, the figure reappeared, looming behind me. "Did you think you could escape?" It hissed. A wave of instinct gripped me. "I'm not done with you yet," it crooned. I stepped back, heart racing, mind clouded. How was I going to face this thing and save Jenna? My only chance lay in that haunting melody. I ran, desperate to find it again, the laughter morphing into a chorus of voices taunting me from all sides. That S when I saw at the door at the far end of the station, slightly ajar, whispers seeping through the crack. Time to trust my instincts. Time to find the truth or lose everything in the process. I dashed towards the door, the whispers growing louder as I approached. Each step felt heavy with uncertainty. The figure's laughter faded momentarily, but I knew it was waiting, lurking in the dark. I flung the door open, my heart pounding in my chest. The room beyond felt different. A warm light spilled out, bright but oddly inviting. I stepped inside, hesitating at first. It was a small control room, all blinking lights and twisted knobs. Old photographs lined the walls, but the faces were obscured, draped in shadows. The radio equipment was familiar, but somehow foreign. I moved toward the console. A single button flashed red, pulsing like a heartbeat. I hesitated. What if pressing it triggered something worse? But Jenna's words echoed in my mind, "Follow the music." The melody still hummed in the air, growing softer but still recognizable. Reaching out, I pressed the button. The old phonograph crackled to life again, and the tune filled the space. The photos on the wall began to swirl, reshaping into moving images. I saw myself and Jenna smiling, but there was something dark lurking in the background, a shadow that seemed to stretch and twist as I watched. Panic laced my thoughts. Were those moments real, or were they fabricated by the station? I couldn't tell anymore. I stepped back, heart pounding louder than the music. Then, an unexpected surge of energy swept through the room. The lights flickered and dimmed. I felt a presence press against me, and I spun around. The figure loomed at the entrance, its features hidden beneath a cloak of darkness. From its shadowy depths came the same luring voice. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered, each word dripping with malice, sending shivers down my spine. "This is my domain. I have to save her," I shouted back, defiance flickering through my fear. I remembered Jenna's face, how she had reached for me. The music swelled again, pouring into my ears like liquid hope. Before I could react, the room shuddered. The walls warped, twisting like they were alive, and I lost my footing, crashing to the ground. The pictures on the wall accelerated, blurring into chaos. Everything brightened and darkened, until it felt like the world was tearing apart. "I cannot let you interfere," the figure roared, and I felt a cold rush envelop me, like a wave threatening to drown me. Desperation clawed at me. I reached for the cassette still resting in my pocket. Maybe it held the answer. I fumbled with it, fighting to my feet as the room steadied. If I could just get the cassette into the phonograph, just as I pressed the tape against the player, something collided with my side, knocking me off balance. I gasped, watching the figure move closer, its form solidifying into something monstrous. That S when I saw it, a glimmer in the corner of my eye, a figure darting through the shadows behind the figure. "Jenna?" I squinted through the chaos. "Help me," I shouted, scrambling to either save her or pull her to safety. But the figure blocked my way, its laughter echoing in a warped symphony. There was no choice but to confront this nightmare head-on. The music soared again, gaining momentum, then everything around me exploded in a flurry of sound and light. The world collapsed into fragments of color and noise. Blinding light filled every corner as the familiar warmth turned agonizing. I staggered, trying to steady myself, but the ground felt unsteady beneath my feet. "Jenna!" I screamed again, hoping my voice could pierce through the chaos. The figure loomed ahead, its dark form shifting like smoke. I could barely see the edges of reality, the walls pulsating as though breathing. Then, I caught sight of Jenna again. She was still there, but now she floated just out of reach, her face clouded by fear. "Please," she called out. "You have to help me." I tore my gaze from the figure and focused on her, the desperate plea in her eyes igniting a spark of determination within me. I shifted my grip on the cassette, heart racing. Somehow, I needed to connect with her. I needed to break the chain binding us to this nightmare. That I lunged forward, hoping to bypass the figure. Its laughter echoed off the walls, thick with mockery. "You think you can save her?" it taunted, advancing towards me. I pressed the button on the phonograph with a trembling hand, praying that the music might somehow empower me. The moment the tune danced back into the air, the atmosphere shifted. The blaring notes transformed the chaos into an almost rhythmic backdrop. I felt the energy in the room morph, and suddenly, the figure recoiled, shrouding itself from the sound. "Now!" Jenna shouted, her voice breaking through the layers of chaos. I could see her getting closer. The moment of clarity washed over me as the music enveloped me, drowning out the menace of the shadow. With renewed energy, I dashed to Jenna, my feet pounding against the ground. But just as I reached out, the figure lurched forward, blocking my path. Black smoke billowed, and I gasped as the chilling tendrils reached for me. "Enough!" I bellowed, the words trembling through the music's melody. I raised the cassette and hurled it toward the phonograph. It landed with a soft thud and instantly sparked to life. A wave of light washed over the room, swallowing everything in a brilliant glow. In that moment, the air shimmered, revealing images of Jenna and our life before. Laughter filled the space, the song morphing into laughter as the shadow writhed in frustration, its power waning. But then, something shifted. I felt the energy retreat, as if it were being siphoned away. "No," I whispered. I glanced back to where Jenna had been, and panic surged through me when I saw her fading alongside the shadow. "Come back." Just as I thought I had almost saved her, the chaos returned. The images splintered and flickered, making it hard for me to focus. Jenna's voice reached me once more, but it sounded distant, muffled. "You have to trust me." Then, everything plunged into silence. The light extinguished, plunging me into complete darkness. Slowly, I felt the cold air brushing against my skin. Something was not right. And then I heard the sound of whispers weaving through the black. It was coming from everywhere. I felt the heaviness of 1,000 eyes upon me, and a fresh wave of fear crashed over me. This was far from over. As the whispers intensified, I realized I had opened a door I could not close. "What have I done?" I murmured. I needed to find Jenna before whatever I had awakened claimed her completely. I felt my heart pounding in my chest as the whispers swirled around me, an ambient chorus rising and falling like waves. Each one tugged at the threads of my mind, wanting me to follow their siren call, promising solace or maybe knowledge. For a moment, I stood frozen in the suffocating darkness, battling the urge to join them. But there was still hope. Jenna. The last thing I remembered was her face, fading away alongside the darkness. I needed to fight against whatever had entrapped us both. Clenching my fists, I forced myself to focus, to remember who I was and that I had come to this place to find her. The air coiled like a serpent around me, oppressive and hot. The whispers became louder, more insistent, each word overlapping, creating a cacophony that threatened to drown me. "Help us," they sighed. "Join us," they laughed. "You are lost," they cooed, each voice sounding eerily sweet despite the venom underlying their words. That I stumbled forward through the darkness, unsure of where I was heading but fueled by a singular purpose. I couldn't surrender to this nightmare. I mentally cursed the station it had taken Jenna, and I wasn't going to let it take me too. I would find her, no matter what it took, Suddenly, the whispers coalesced into a single voice that cut through the chaos like a knife. "Use what you have," it said ominously, and in that instant, I remembered the key. I found the one that could unlock whatever door still lay hidden in this place that it was disorienting, moving through the darkness with purpose. My mind raced with memories, the laughter Jenna used to have, the whispers that called to me, and the shadows that encircled us. I could feel their weight, pressing against my shoulders, watching me. But I was resolute. I wouldn't be afraid anymore. I shouted into the void, a declaration against the unseen forces. With every step I took, I felt my senses sharpening. Weights lifted, and the atmosphere began to shift. Suddenly, ahead, a faint light flickered back into existence like a solitary star in a deep sky. I rushed towards it, my breath hitching in anticipation. As I approached the source of the light, I recognized it as the control room again. The hum of the equipment was familiar, yet it felt tainted, like an echo of something darker. But before I even reached the door, I realized there was still a way to stop everything. What I needed was back in the storage room, the tapes. The truth that I hesitated, wondering if returning would be risking everything. Yet something propelled me on. Perhaps it held the answers I desperately sought. I backtracked quickly, back down the corridor, my heart racing. The atmosphere shifted, curling around me in sinister anticipation, like a predator sensing prey. The storage room loomed ahead, the old wooden door slightly ajar. As I entered, the musty scent of dust filled my nostrils like an obscured memory. I dashed over to the box of tapes, my fingers fumbling with urgency as I began to sift through them. One tape felt oddly warm against my palm, its label stained and unmarked. Could this hold the key? Before I could stop myself, I slid it into the player. The whir rang out, and static filled the room, followed by a voice, a familiar one. My heart dropped as Jenna's voice shimmered through the crackle, clear yet haunting. "You have to choose, make it right. You must remember," she urged, echoing through the stillness. The room vibrated with energy as the images flickered, disjointed fragments of memories and whispers tumbling together until they revealed a path to the truth. I felt the energy flipping, shifting, revealing a connection between the voices and the dark figure. Each moment I recalled tethered me closer to a revelation I could feel rising just beneath the surface. "Stay with me," I pleaded, sensing Jenna's presence wrapping around me like a fragile thread. "Don't fade. I'm here," she said, her voice clearer now. "But you must understand, the shadows are drawn to those who listen too deeply. You must not succumb." The static surged deep and sentimental, merging with the laughter real. Laughter this time. I closed my eyes tightly, willing myself to take it in, to let it guide me instead of consuming me. As I placed my hand near the playback device, I reached for the truth, willing it to spill out. I felt connected to Jenna, and with that connection, I refused to let us become lost. Suddenly, the laughter crescendoed into a wild cacophony, a rising tide that threatened to drown out everything else. Shadows darted outside the faint glow, threatening to reclaim us both. The door swung open, and there stood the figure, formless in the dark but powerful. With a renewed surge of determination, I summoned all I had. "We're done listening," I shouted, pushing to the forefront of my determination. "You don't have power over us." The music blared louder, and strangely, I felt the shadows jerk back momentarily, flickering like an unstable flame. I could feel the light starting to break through, a threshold of hope pushing against the darkness, but not before the laughter returned, wild and tumultuous. The figure lunged at me, a whirl of murky fog. In that moment, I grabbed the other tapes, hurling them into the player, desperate to fill the air with truth and denial of darkness. They clicked into place, activating a storm of sound that reverberated against the walls. Images flashed, moments with Jenna, the laughter, the warmth. "You can't take us," I screamed, and the room brightened, the shadows twisting as if attempting to recoil against a blinding truth. The figure froze, then let out a horrific scream that reverberated throughout the station. I could see it losing its form, struggling, the laughter spiraling into a mournful whine. "Join us," it shrieked one last time before bursting into pale smoke and vanishing into nothingness, leaving a silence so profound it felt tangible. As the dust settled, I felt the energy shift, like a weight lifting from my chest. I looked at the tapes still shimmering in the playback device. I had found the truth, but pieces of the station lingered in shadows, unresolved whispers and old laughter escaping into the nothingness. In the stillness that followed, I felt a presence at my side. "Jenna?" I whispered, turning slowly. In the soft glow, her form sparked to life once more, vibrant but translucent. "I'm still here," she assuredly said, "but we are free now." I reached for her, but could only grasp light. "Why do I still feel this weight?" "Because this place, this energy is part of you now. You fought against it, and there will always be questions left unanswered. But we've broken the cycle," she said, her smile radiant. I wasn't sure if the station would ever let us go fully, but together, we had wrestled something horrific into submission. Yet as I took a breath of relief, I couldn't shake the whispers that still echoed at the edges of my thoughts. Would they come back? Did any of this darkness remain? "I'll find you again," I promised, a fresh determination swelling within me. As the light seeped outwards, I felt a sense of uncertainty mixed with resolve. Some mysteries would linger, the tapestry of shadows still entwined with the laughter that echoed long after we left. But I had chosen to break free, and that choice held power beyond understanding. I stepped into the light, and it consumed me, but not without leaving questions swirling in the aftermath, shadows flickering beyond the penumbra of what I couldn't yet grasp.